would like to welcome our speaker for today, Mr. Gautham Shastry. Mr. Gautham Shastry is an architect having both design and project delivery experience. Although Mr. Gautham graduated as an architect, he decided to pursue a master's in construction economics and management from the Bartlett School of Construction and Project Management, University College London, specializing in the delivery of mega projects. During his degree, he got an opportunity to work as a quantity surveyor on the Great Ormond Street Hospital redevelopment project, London. He is a chartered construction manager from the Chartered Institute of Building, United Kingdom. Post-graduation, he received an offer from Bechtel Corporation to work as a project controls engineer. He worked on Gatwick Airport CapEx project as a cost and contracts manager and was part of a successful airline moves program. He successfully closed the North Terminal development program at a cost of £670 million. He later worked as a part of the Bechtel legal team who were trying to negotiate with 200 odd plaintiffs in Kosovo, and was a part of the then Europe's longest motorway, Kosovo Motorway Route 6. He later worked on Europe's largest infrastructure project, High Speed 2, as an estimating manager, where he was part of the team who submitted the hybrid bill for HS2 for Royal Assent. He also worked on Riyadh Metro, Hiniki Point C Nuclear as a project control engineer. He is now working as a director for PADMAADEV. PADMAADEV is trying to deliver projects both large and small scale using design build as a delivery mechanism. The company strives hard to increase the productivity of India's unorganized construction sector. A warm welcome to you, sir. Gautham sir will be presenting today about complexities of a mega project, the gradual shift towards design build. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much, Assistant Professor Siddhartha, sir.
Yeah.
First of all, great video, guys. Really enjoyed the fact that you were all over Dubai. Nice music. Hope you enjoyed it. So, the thing about Dubai is one of those cosmopolitan cities which has n number of mega projects. If you have gone around Dubai, may it be your Dubai Metro, Dubai International Airport, may it be your Jumeirah Garden City, Blue Waters Island, Dubai Harbour, etc., etc. So today we'll be talking about everything that you have actually seen or experienced or felt. But just that you've seen the finished product, I'll be talking about how we get to the point where we have a finished product. So today's project is, topic is complexities of a mega project. And I would also like to talk about how our Indian construction market is slowly transcending from the traditional design bid build method, which is what we are all following right now, to a more developed project delivery mechanism, which is design build. First of all, thank you for the introduction, and I would also like to thank Dr. Ganesh Babu sir for giving me this opportunity to speak with all of you and share my thoughts and limited experience. First of all, in order to find out what the outcome of this presentation will be, I've just put desired outcomes. You will have a basic understanding of what a mega project is and how exactly mega projects are managed. May it be Hoover Dam, may it be Delhi-Mumbai infrastructure corridor, which is in India, may it be the ceiling project in Worli. All these projects are humongous in its capital expenditure spending or the design intricacy which are required for that project to become a success. So today we'll be talking a little bit about how we as architects can play a very important role in delivering these mega projects. I think B.Arch is a very, very basic degree one can get. Many people disagree with me when they say that B.Arch is a professional degree. They put AR on, behind their names, and which is very good. But I feel B.Arch is something similar to Bachelor's of Engineering or Bachelor's of anything else, because there are multiple opportunities that are prevalent after B.Arch, where you can specialize, where you can actually get the skills that are unique to that particular profession. So I feel in the context of mega project management, the destination is quite wound. You know, it is intertwined. It has n number of complexities. So you're probably not very far from where I am. You can also take up this profession and then you know, show your management instincts. I'd just like to talk about my career timeline. My career timeline, I passed out of Bachelor's of Architecture in 2014. So I'm not that elder to you, to be frank. After which, I actually did my Bachelor's from Sagar College of Architecture. I did my internship in Group Architects. I think many of you know that firm. After which, I went to the UK. Thankfully, I got a you know, admission in University College London. I got a seat in Bartlett School of Construction and Project Management. During my time at Bartlett, I also worked as a quantity surveyor on the Great Ormond Street Hospital in central London, which is actually a cancer hospital for young children. And then when I finished my master's, I finished it in construction economics. I specialized in how a mega project is delivered. Specialized is a very, very you know, understatement for something like this, because you can never be specialized in anything. Post my master's, I got a job with Bechtel. Bechtel is one of the Fortune 500 companies who deliver, who have delivered some of the largest projects we've all seen, including the Hoover Dam, the Channel Tunnel Rail Link. In India, it's Krishna Godavari liquefaction plant, or you know, your Jamnagar refinery, Reliance refinery. So my first job was to bid on a project where Bechtel was bidding for a delivery partner on York Potash. York Potash was a $40 billion project where somewhere in Yorkshire, up in the Highlands, we thought that it would be nice to actually get some potash out of earth and then transport it to the nearest port. We bid for that. I almost spent around 2 months on that project. And one fine day, I realized that we haven't won that project because the government has scrapped that project altogether. Then they put me on Gatwick Airport as an executive assistant to the head of construction there. My job was to actually manage the prime contract between Bechtel Corporation and Gatwick Airport Limited. Then I got into Gatwick Airport North Terminal Development as a field engineer. Then I became a contract administrator of the same project. Then I became new engineering contract super user. So my job over years has been in architecture, field engineering, contract management, cost engineering, a little bit of quantity surveying. Next job was quite different altogether because it was nothing that I knew. They put me on legal department. I did not know head or tail of how large corporations legal department works. They put me as a paralegal because they couldn't find me any other job. So I was there on the bench of Bechtel, which means that we were not on a project, we were on the head office of Bechtel. Then that's the first time I actually realized as to how important these projects that we're talking about are to livelihoods or generally how people live altogether. Because there were 200 plaintiffs, plaintiffs meaning people who put a case against someone. So they had put a case against those 200 plaintiffs had put cases against the partnership company which was in Kosovo, which was Bechtel-Lenka General Partnership, because our mass haul trucks were traveling right behind their houses. So their houses had cracks. So it was the largest motorway or the longest motorway of Europe back then, Kosovo Motorway Route 6. But it had caused extreme amount of devastations to people's lives. So we, as someone who have done architecture or construction management, have a huge responsibility towards the society as well, because the projects that we work on changes the way people live. Then after that, I finished my work there, went into High Speed 2 as a cost and estimating manager. High Speed 2 was actually a bullet train project linking the north and south of England. The trains, the design speed of trains was around 340 kilometers per hour. So I was recruited as the cost and estimating manager for Route 2 of High Speed 2, which was around 80 miles stretch. I had a short stint in Hinkley Point C, which is a nuclear power plant in UK, south of UK. And then after that, I quit my job, packed my bags, sold my house there, sold my car, came back to England, joined my family construction company, and now currently I'm working as a principal architect and also the director of the company. So the reason why I told you all these things was I had an architecture degree, and I did everything but architecture until recently. So an architecture degree is not just for architecture. I feel an architecture degree gives you that thought process or the agency to think, which gives you an opportunity to deal with many, many different types of problems in construction. But there are many skills that we as architects don't seem to enhance during our 5 years of Bachelor's of Architecture. So I call the 4th year of B.Arch, at least for me, it was solace and confusion, because I did not know what I wanted to do in life. I did not know where I would be getting into with respect to my college admissions. So it was quite confusing for me with respect to where my life would go. So there are some things that we, in this particular period of time, need to enhance. There's one thing that I have noticed as a fellow architect is when we are reading through stuff, we don't actually do a lot of careful reading. We don't read between the lines. That's very important for a businessman or for a person managing projects. You have to see that contract document left, right, and center and actually know it by heart. Next comes team management. Although there are some team projects that we deal with during architecture, I think there is a need for us to actually improve how we manage teams, because in future you would be dealing with or you would be managing more than 2 or 3 teams, and many teams would be reporting into you. And it's your job to actually make sense of each and every team's team's effort and try and marry all the teams and then make a project come to life. This is a very, very, very important relationship building and marketing, because this is something that I'm understanding now, because I have my own company, and without relationship building, no one's going to give you a project. So you as an architect or a B.Arch graduate should be out there making relationships with industry leaders or people who are working as architects already. You have to go to AAAD events or REBA events or RICS events which are happening in Bangalore, and put your face out there as a young architect. We should also be able to negotiate better, because we have never been taught this negotiation skill as to how a negotiation works. But most of the time when you are in the real life, there are many times where you're put in a position where you have to negotiate. We're not very good at that. And this negotiation skill develops with very clear and targeted verbal communication. For example, you never talk anything more than what is required to be talked. So that's one of the skill of which is required for effective negotiation. And we should be quite certain about how our cost management skills are, because we as architects really, for the lack of better word, suck at cost management. We need to understand where we are spending our rupees from our design. We need to understand where is the maximum cost that's there as a value that you can tap into. So I've just put this graphic on the right side of the slide where architecture can actually pave way for many other professions which are actually related to design or related to the way a designer thinks. For example, you can be an art director, you can get into construction law, you can get into project management, you can get into smaller designs which are project design. You can also get into machine design actually. So we need to be, during at least our BR, we need to be cautious of these are the options available for me. So you have to build your strengths according to what you want to choose after architecture. Or if you want to choose core architecture, that's also fine. My career choice was project management. I got into project management quite early, to be frank. I worked as a site engineer while I was in architecture for a short duration of time. Projects have success criteria. For us to actually understand whether a project is a success or a failure, we need to first come up with what it means to be successful. That is success criteria. And that is where your project management starts. You are managing people, you're managing men and women, you're managing engineers, you're managing designers, you're managing consultants, you are managing workflow on site. So all these project management, all these put together becomes what we call as project management. So DuPont back in 1948 came up with this theory where he came up with iron triangle, the triangle that you see on the slide. That's called, there is scope, schedule, resources, and quality. So these are the 4 success factors, success criteria of any project. For example, you take our Namma Metro, for example. The scope of the project has changed multiple times over the duration of the project. But that does not mean that the project will be a failure, because the scope actually addresses more to people's changing needs. The quality of construction, or there are 2 types of quality altogether. There is quality of process and quality of product. So we have to be quite certain in project management to manage both, not just the product, which is our end product, which is the building or the viaduct we are building, but also the way we build it, also the way we actually communicate with people, or the way processes are set in. So that is also the quality that we measure a project success criteria on. With resources comes obviously cost. No project can be more than what the anticipated cost was. We can't keep changing cost forecasts over and over again to actually match our narrative. We have to stick to a certain cost baseline that we set. Next comes schedule, which is how many days a project takes. So managing all these 4 is project management. So what do project managers manage? In a mega project, one of the most important thing is actually there are multiple stakeholders in mega project. For example, in Gatwick Airport that I was working in, There was the Airport Authority, there was the Airport Limited, which is Gatwick Airport Limited. Next came all the airlines that were working. Next came the passengers. Next came workers who have been working at Gatwick Airport already. So all these different sects of people are your stakeholders, and each stakeholder have normally often conflicting set of priorities. So managing priorities is project management. And project managers normally manage people's motivations. Many people have different motivations for a project to come to life. And the impact a project has to humankind, also the solution to the problem the project is giving. We'll get into a little more detail now. Now I want to explain what is a mega project. A mega project is not just a house or a commercial complex or a hospital. It is multiple houses, multiple commercial complexes, multiple hospitals put together in one project. That is a mega project. It is one of the first and till date most comprehensive definitions of a mega project, and why there is such complexity in a mega project was given by Simon and McFarland in 1969, when he says that complexity derives from the relation between entities in a mega project. There is a contracting entity, there is a design entity, there is an owning entity, which is the owner. So there are multiple stakeholders and multiple entities owning things. So the complexity between the relation actually defines the complexity of a mega project. And in simple terms, there is a blasphemously high capital cost associated with the mega project. There are long schedules. Normally, schedule goes up till 6 years or 7 years. The project that I was working on, the last project I worked on, High Speed 2, had a schedule of around 46 years. So essentially, when my grandkids would be born, the project that I was working on would actually come to full life. So and there is almost a virtual enterprise which is created in a mega project, which is a very collaborative working atmosphere which is built between the architects, designers, each and every stakeholder in that project delivery process. I want to give you an example of the project that I worked on, Gatwick Airport. And the program of works that I was working on was under this program called as Airline Moves. Airline Moves is one of a very few projects which had 3 days timeline. That's it. And it's a mega project. We say that there is a long schedule, but Airline Moves as a project had only 3 days of schedule, which was, there was North Terminal in Gatwick Airport and South Terminal in Gatwick Airport. I think it was January 24th to 27th of 2016 or 2017 that was set up, saying in these 3 days, right, British Airways, which is actually docking their aircrafts or parking their aircrafts in the North Terminal, will be on January 27th, will be parking their all aircrafts, which are almost 48 aircrafts, in the South Terminal. And EasyJet, which is another company, which is a local aircraft carrier, will be consolidated in North Terminal with their 140 odd aircrafts. But the complexity comes where you can't just take an aircraft, take out the aircraft from North Terminal and then park it in the South Terminal. It's not as easy as parallel parking. The complexity comes there when EasyJet, which is our customer back then, had demands as to if they have to consolidate their operations in North Terminal, there are A to Z demands that they had, which included for a totally morphed terminal. Our north terminal before Airline moves was an old rundown terminal, but then they wanted a new shiny terminal. So we had to literally renovate the entire terminal of around 8 lakh square feet. Next came British Airways. Next came AAAD or your Emirates. All of them had their own requirements to actually move from one terminal to another. So managing these expectations was the most important part of that project. Now, although Airline moves was just 3 days, the ancillary work for Airline moves to happen was 3 years of project. We go to the next slide now. So what you see on the right is a master plan of Gatwick Airport. You see the runway, which is at orbital 8. There was a second runway which was not used because of AAAD regulations. Then there was n number of taxiways leading to the terminal and the piers. So we had to placate British Airways from North Terminal and then put them in South Terminal, EasyJet from South Terminal to North Terminal, Virgin Atlantic Airlines from South Terminal to North Terminal. So it was literally playing chess games, right? And wherever the airlines sit on, they wanted their own requirements. For example, Etihad had, sorry, it was Emirates. Emirates had Airbus A380, which is the largest Airbus, as you know. It can hold up to around 800 odd people. The pier meaning the connecting structure between the aircraft and the airport itself, the main part of the airport, had to be totally designed differently, because the pedstat movement or the pedestrian movement that actually leads from the airport to the aircraft was much higher than any other aircraft. So we had to actually create a new pier just for one aircraft to land of Emirates in Gatwick Airport. The problem came when, yes, we all decided that, okay, Airbus A380 will be parking here. There is an overbridge on the runway or on the taxiway where the aircraft goes. Back when we were discussing, Airbus A380's topmost ventricle was not present, and then came, an addition to Airbus A380, which made the aircraft almost 2 meters higher. Now, what happens to the overbridge, which is on top of a taxiway? That had to be demolished. That had to be redone altogether. So, a mega project has many activities put together, and all these activities come together to actually make a long schedule. So for a pier to be made, for airline moves to happen, we had to first construct a pier for A380. Then we had to construct an overbridge for the same thing. Then we had to construct the pier. So this again, each of it, say it's around a year long of schedule, gives us 3 years. I think we can go to the next slide. I think someone raised their hand. I don't know what that means. Do you have a question?
So the question session will be after the presentation. So
right. Okay. I feel a B.Arch degree is a value addition. With respect to, there were many skills that I had that not many engineers or project control, although I was a project controls engineer myself, my job was much easier than the effort that I was putting in my job was much lesser than anyone else, because of the amount of critical thinking that we are exposed to. I'll just give you an example of what happened in Manchester Airport Station on High Speed 2 project. I've told you High Speed 2 is a bullet train project linking the north and south of England. So we had to place a station, which is a station is 1 kilometer long, because the train is a kilometer long. So we had to place a station near Manchester Airport, a High Speed 2 station near Manchester Airport. But imagine your train is coming at this level, but we had to actually put the station at this level. And for a train to actually come from this level to this level, you need enough chainage. It can't just shift levels like that, because your train will get derailed at 340 kilometers per hour. So one of the things that I did was actually just took the topography of the existing land there. And the problem was that there is Manchester Airport Station here, there is a tunnel right here, a twin bore tunnel, and there is actually a mountain here. So the train had to come through the mountain into the Manchester Airport Station and going into the tunnel itself. So what my architecture brain did was, you know what, there is a tunnel here already. Continue the tunnel till the end of the mountain. Why not? And that might actually save a lot of money. So we did some initial research on whether it can be done, because the train was actually coming from top into a viaduct, down into the Manchester Airport Station, into a tunnel. So so this was a random idea which popped up to me, saying that why not just continue the tunnel all through further from that mountain which is there. So after almost months research into it, we came to a conclusion that my visualization skill, which I got from my B.Arch, actually saved circa 340 odd million to the government of United Kingdom. So one lesson that I learned was, we as B.Arch graduates are quite smart when it comes to the way we visualize things, and we should keep this in mind, that we have to always use this wherever we can, because not many people can actually visualize like we do. And someone who's more experienced is not always right. So you have to be bold enough to ask questions and try and understand what the other person is saying as well at the same time. And if a decision is taken, I think we as critical thinkers should be able to question that decision sometimes. Just because your boss says something does not mean that he or she is right. And we as architects should be able to say, hang on a minute, I don't think this is the way which can be, or I have another way which can be much better than what you are suggesting. So this is about what a mega project is, or just a very brief skim through the surface of what a mega project is. Now I would like to go into something different. Why our Indian construction market is actually slowly transcending from the traditional delivery mechanism to a new and improved delivery mechanism, which is design build. How does our construction sector perform in India? Is actually gives us, if we actually consider the overall performance indicators of the industry, we can then come to a lower level and then say whether we are performing well or bad. In 2014, there was research that was statistical research that was undertaken by Government of India on the construction sector's productivity, and our productivity is abysmal, by the way. We are worse than any manufacturing industry. Obviously, we'll be bad when compared to manufacturing industry, but the performance of our industry is quite low compared to any other country or compared to any other industry itself. So I think we as youngsters need to really come up with ideas as to how we can make the current system that we are living in better. So I'll tell you one thing. My grandfather was a civil engineer. My father was a civil engineer. My grandfather was chief engineer of Himavati Dam. My father was in Konkan Railway Bridge. My father has built almost 300 odd projects in Bangalore over 30 years. But can you imagine that my grandfather and my father, or anyone in that space, haven't really changed the way they have delivered projects? So essentially, over the last 40 years, we have been delivering construction projects the same way. Whereas the other countries have developed. There was always a master builder or an architect. Then came a contractor who will be bidding for the job and then taking the job. Now, once the bidding is done, once the contractor has taken the job, then comes problems between the contractor and the designer and the owner and the contractor. Now, is that a professional and efficient way of delivering projects? Now, that's a question mark. My MSc research was based on this, saying, can we deliver projects better than what we're delivering it now? So here are some graphs which you might get daunted by, but I will explain, saying that the predictability of time, saying if we say that, if we as contractors or designers say that the project will be delivered by 6 months, does that mean that we will actually deliver it by 6 months? Obviously not, right? But actually it should be that we are delivering it by 6 months. So in 2013-14, the cost predictability, the time predictability in India was so low that people were losing faith in our industry altogether. Some people started calling us, if you're a contractor itself, it's something that, okay, you're doing something wrong. It had come to that level. But there were reasons why, the other industries thought like this. It's because of the fact that we were not delivering projects on time and on schedule. And for our clients to actually get confidence in us, we need to do these two. How do we do these two? Now comes the next one. Now in our industry, barring my own company, where our client satisfaction is over the roof, the client satisfaction in our industry is quite low. Clients don't think that we add value to projects sometimes. Clients don't sometimes think that architects add value to projects. So therefore, we have to be adaptive to changes in the market outside of India and actually bring those changes here and increase the productivity of our construction industry. So next, we will go to why this might happen. How does the current delivery system look? Now there is an owner. There is a contract between an owner and a designer. Now the designer designs for the first 8 months of interaction between the owner and the designer. Then comes a contractor. A contractor comes, bids for the job, and gets the project through competitive bidding. Now, what happens during this current delivery system is that the client is actually exposed to 2 different contracts. His contractual liability is high. Will any client want to do that? Wouldn't he want to actually guard his contractual liability? That's not just it. now there is 6 months of design which has happened, and construction starts after the 7th month. Now, is there a better way of delivering projects where design is happening simultaneously, we are constructing simultaneously? It can happen on larger projects at least. Even on smaller projects, we are doing currently, we are doing the design build method, where I believe at least our clients are more satisfied. Our cost and time predictability is much higher than what we were doing before uh, in the traditional delivery system. Now let's see why actually shift to design build. Now here the contract strategy is quite different. The owner has a contract with the design builder, who takes the entire responsibility of delivering the project to the owner. Now, there might be 1 or 2 design consultants reporting to the design builder, and there are specialty and subcontractors and also principal contractors who will be reporting to the design builders. Now, this is how we at PADMAADEV want to actually change the way our construction industry is functioning. So we want to build a robust delivery mechanism based on design and build, where we act as a single point of contact and we take responsibility of everything. I think there is a lot of scope in everybody actually thinking this way and amalgamating these two professions of contracting and architecture. Now, another reason to shift to design build is there is a tremendously faster delivery compared to the traditional conventional approach. Now, normally on larger projects, what happens is there will be a preliminary design, next comes interim design, then comes your final working design. Then all the construction documents are prepared, then there will be a long bidding process, then comes construction. But whereas in design build, there is a guaranteed maximum price established right after preliminary design, which means that the client exactly knows how much he's going to spend, plus or minus 5% of estimating inaccuracy included. The client exactly knows how much he's going to spend at the end of the project. He might not know that with the conventional approach, and that might actually expose him to multiple risks. And with the design build mechanism, like for example, there are many times that we design here and we go to our construction department people and just simply ask, okay, can this be done? Simple things like, I had put a cantilever which is projecting out, a cantilever slab of 8 feet 6 inches. And in the view, it's just a cantilever which is projecting like this. But actually, we need a beam. And we might need a steel column to actually support 8 feet 6 inches of cantilever. Unless you put, girders to support it. So we got that input from construction team, because sometimes architects, we as architects don't know as much structure as a structural engineer, obviously. So this actually improves the way we work on simple things like this, and there is good amount of time and thus opportunity cost that's actually saved. Next comes higher quality through integration. So we believe that design build as a mechanism will provide a higher quality, especially with respect to process quality. There is smooth interactions between each and every entity which is involved in a project. And because of quality in the process, we have quality in the product as well. So, according to research by Simon and McFarlane, we actually save 33.5%, through a shorter delivery cycle. We are going to save 12.5% in construction duration. We're going to reduce construction costs by 6.1%. So why not actually take up on this new it's not really new, but why not take up this delivery mechanism and then go forward? So with this, I would like to stop my seminar, and I would like to ask you to actually seriously think your career options with respect to having wide-ranging experiences going forward, so that one day you know there will be that amount of confidence in all of us where we can say that we work in one of the most agile industries. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for the wonderful presentation. It was very eye-opening and informative. Uh, we will go on to the question and answer session. So we have a few questions given towards you. So one of them is, what is the best type of organization structure in mega projects?
I think one of the best organization structures that I have come across is called a matrix organization. A matrix organization is having one person at the center, at the top, functional managers reporting to that manager. Okay, imagine there's a general manager here. There are 5 functional managers. Functional managers for cost, functional manager for quality, functional manager for construction, functional manager for architecture design, and functional manager for health and safety. Who will be overlooking, say, your field engineers, who also report into a project manager? So read up on what a matrix organization system is, and it's quite interesting. Read up on it. So while I was working at Hinkley Point, that was the organization system, and I thought it was quite agile. And Bechtel actually follows, and even at PADMAADEV, we follow a matrix organization.
Yeah, we have a couple of more questions. One more question is, how do you coordinate with time and cost?
Sorry?
And how do you coordinate with time and cost?
I don't particularly understand the question. Okay. Anyway, I am going to talk about time and cost. That might clear something.
I can interrupt for a minute. I think what the student meant was,
Yes, sir,
the time versus cost versus manpower requirement. To achieve the time frame, what are the parameters? How do you actually meet the requirement? I think there is some software which you can just mention, which will handle these things in a better way.
There are multiple softwares. It's not just one or two softwares that you learn and then suddenly you become a project management wizard. Project management is not about softwares. I don't think softwares really will give you any sort of edge, because at the end of the day, you're a manager. You manage people. So with respect to time, say for example, you track your schedule on P6, which is Primavera P6. With respect to cost, there are multiple softwares like Costos. There is simple Excel would actually do as well, and there is also software called Prism, which is a repository of cost as well. So with all these systems in place, we can manage cost and schedule as well, and make sure that there is no schedule creep, because if there is a schedule creep, there is a proportional cost increase in a project.
Does the PERT chart help in any case, Mr. Gautham?
Sorry, sir?
Does the PERT chart help in any way to manage these things?
Yes, your PERT chart, your Gantt chart, all those, your schedule essentially means your PERT chart. We call it your P6 schedule. It basically splits a project into multiple activities, which can be where each activity is an entity on its own, with no interrelation between any other activity, and those activities have a relationship between other activities. And there is also a critical path which is made where if we as project managers follow that critical path and go forward, uh, we will deliver that project on time.
So one question from Shahid, who's been watching your webinar.
Hello, Shahid.
Does an architect's role
Hi,
reduce
sir.
in... Shahid, you can ask, sir, your question.
Okay. Yeah. So the question what I had in mind was, if you're working as an architect in a company, and the major focus of an architect should be in designing. So I think, wouldn't it reduce your role as a designer when you get into the managing of the whole project? When you're managing an entire mega project or something in a bigger scale, wouldn't your designing skills get, suppressed by the management?
Well, you're right, and yeah, you're right in a certain way. Designing requires some amount of time which is dedicated to it.
Yeah.
Whereas when you get into general management of a project, you are managing designers who have that capability. Now it's upon you whether you want to specialize in design or you want to actually have, okay, I'll give you an example, right? When we were working on Gatwick, Atkins were designers, Arab were designers, and I was managing, well, not their design really. My design manager was actually managing their design. Does not mean that you actually lose your designing ability, but it means that you actually improve your ability of managing a design rather than designing it yourself.
Right. Yes, sir.
Does that answer your question?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
One more question, sir. It's from again a delegate. Is MS Project the best software that you would suggest for project scheduling?
No, it's P6, Primavera P6. MS Project can be used for smaller projects, but for larger projects with more than 5,000 activities, you would require Primavera P6. And MS Project has limited, editing capabilities in a schedule. For example, in a project, there are n number of change orders that keep coming, and you have to update your schedule literally almost every week, because every week there is some of the amount of some of the other work that has actually cropped up, which haven't been considered in the initial contract that you've had. So when there is a change order, comes a change in your schedule. So I think with respect to that, Primavera P6 is much more efficient when compared to project. But on the other hand, I have seen senior schedulers who have been working with me who use MS Project, and we try to marry P6 with MSP.
Okay.
But
one more question.
I personally, any day, Primavera.
Yeah. One more question, sir. How mega projects have significant relevance in developing countries?
I think developing countries have the maximum relevance of mega projects. For example, what is your GDP? We keep talking about gross domestic product, but not many people understand what gross domestic product is. Gross domestic product is actually the sum of your government spending, private expenditure, your taxes, everything put together. So when the government spending increases, there are mega projects. So essentially, when government spends on mega projects, your GDP of the country increases. There is more jobs available in the market. So for a country like India, to be frank, the amount of the number of mega projects that our country is actually having right now is tremendous. India is a $1 trillion economy. 2.94 trillion is our economy, and you see, there was one thing which actually made my day was, while I was working at High Speed 2, back then it was a 55 billion pound project. One of my bosses asked me, why have you come to UK and you're working here? when you can actually go back to India and do Delhi-Mumbai infrastructure corridor, which is 4 times bigger than high-speed 2. So India's growth currently lies with in infrastructure, lies with nuclear energy, which will be produced going further. India's growth also lies with healthcare. So there are n number of mega projects that the government will be planning now as well. Your metros as well, oil and gas.
Yeah. So one final question.
Please.
Considering no floats in the project, how will you analyze the project time during the pandemic? That is the present coronavirus pandemic.
Right.
What changes would it bring in construction and project management?
Right. So many of the things depend on the contract document, which actually governs the contractual relationship between an architect and a design build manager. So normally all construction contracts have this sub-clause called force majeure, which will actually include for any natural calamities or things like the pandemic which is happening now. So according to force majeure, if, for example, your handover date is on October 19th, according to force majeure, you have to include for 2.5 months of coronavirus pandemic, which has actually increased our time schedule. And there are tremendous amount of losses which we are facing as well.
So is there any possibility of, taking this into consideration and how the management will change, like, towards projects? Or is it like just a loss?
Well, management can change on projects in many ways. Right? Currently, I can give you my own example. In my company, there is highest amount of labor shortage that is there, because many of our labor, most of our labor force comes from up north, say Bihar, say Uttar Pradesh, Jharkhand, and many people have gone back to their home states post the lockdown ended. So your management style will change now. According to me, your management style should be in such a way that, say for example, your civil labor contractor is facing labor crisis. I would suggest all of my fellow people who are in business not to take any tension now from any of our clients, because we're all in the same state of affairs, right? We're all in the same soup. So if our clients are putting pressure to actually ramp up work, well, we can't, because we don't have labor. So that should be a management style, really, because give extreme amount of love, affection to the people who work for you. That's my suggestion to everyone.
Okay. Thank you.
Make sure they're well
fed.
Make sure they're having shelter, because at the time of need, your client will not come to you. It's the labor force who are working for you.
Thank you, sir. It was a wonderful session. I now call upon our principal, Sir Ganesh Babu, sir, to give a few words.
Yeah. Welcome back, all. I think it was a very good, very relevant and informative presentation, Mr. Gautham. Doing architecture is one part, but the management of labor and management of the entire site, very challenging. That is something which all architects, all of us have to understand. And I'm sure, most of us probably are not very well versed with this management aspects on site. And now the profession is being, taken over by project management consultants, mainly because, we lack this talent of managing site issues and site activities. I appreciate that you have taken, such interest in this management and expertise in your practice. that would be an added success to run an office. That is, according to me, that would be an added value for an architect to survive in future. So with this, I would like to thank you for your wonderful session and all the students who have participated. And I think there was a rigorous round of questions. In fact, there are a couple of more questions due to positive time. We're not able to post it on the.
I wouldn't mind taking them.
Yeah.
I wouldn't mind taking them. Yeah, please.
Yeah. So we would definitely have these things shared with you so that our students and the delegates are answered on the question.
Yeah.
So I thank you once again for joining us and encouraging our students and exposing our students to the unknown factor of management, project management part. I think it was a wonderful session. Thank you, Gautham, and over to Siddharth.
Thank you very much.
Thank you once again. I would also like to thank the team without whom this webinar would not have been possible. I thank Architect Sendal Kumar, the webinar coordinator. I thank Architect Hashita, broadcast coordinator. And especially, I want to thank our principal, sir, who has made this opportunity possible. And also, I thank the management of AAAD, who has extended us their support for our endeavors. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you, Gautham.